How you doing?
Hello. Good morning.
I'm Laura Qaissaunee, and I'm the Director of Grants from Brookdale Community College in New Jersey. I've had the pleasure of being at this conference a couple of times and talking about grants with you. My colleague Cheryl Dettrick, I'll let her tell you what her consultant company is.
I'm here from California, so just a few hours down the road, and my specialty is usually working with community colleges and a few four-year universities. I've been specializing mostly in assisting colleges with federal grants. We probably have more of an opportunity with those right now, and especially in California, than we do with state grants. But there are still a few opportunities out there. So as we go through, we'll just kind of interject how I support those efforts at community colleges, whether or not you have a grants office. I typically am able to come in and help design the projects, help write the proposals, and then kind of facilitate the colleges being successful with those. And feel pretty good about my track record with that. So we'll try to interject different ways that I can maybe support you here in California or outside of the state as well. Laura and I worked together on a few projects even from New Jersey to California. So we'll talk about some samples and examples of successes with that too. And
I know by people in the audience that several have been successful with NSF grants, with Department of Labor grants, and Department of Education grants too, right? So we can talk a little bit about the kinds of things that you're all doing. And again, it really is, we're in a resource-challenged time, and the grants are a little bit difficult to find, and they're a little bit different than they have been in the past. We want to, So, basically, what we're seeing are large-scale, multi-partner industries, business industries, and workforce development types of grants. And I think that you probably might be familiar with some of the Department of Labor initiatives. They're $20 million grants for, any number of partners focused on any number of industries. But this is more and more the kind of thing that we're seeing, as opposed to a single institution applying to build their own capacity to provide training in one area. There's requirements too that everything that is done be based on best practices, and you identify the best practices according to, has it been strongly tested, sort of tested, and this is a new test. So they're really, they're a different breed, but they've been evolving over the past few years. And Warren, do you have TAA?
Yeah, we do.
You do? Okay, so that's kind of the thing we're talking about. What industry do you focus on?
That's the
health
sciences.
Okay. And is it, a $20 million one, or is it a smaller? Okay. Okay.
It's a large grant, and the DOE Department of Education grant that we're involved with is your bulleted item there on large federal grants reaching across the United States. We're part of the College Access Challenge grant.
Okay.
I don't know if you're familiar with CCG.
Yeah.
So we put that to very, very good use at the College of Southern Nevada.
Good. Okay. All right.
That's money that's shared throughout the Nevada system of higher education, but we got the largest chunk because we're the largest institution.
And was it applied through by the state, or did it single?
The state oversees it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. 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 All right. Some of the elements that are common in these big grants, and they're also common in the smaller foundation grants, but it's really all about strengthening the workforce in this day and age. And with federal dollars very tight, I think that what we see is that emphasis will continue to be funded, in 2013. Some of the other departments are going to see cuts. We don't really know what those cuts look like yet, though. Even though we didn't fall off the cliff, there's still going to be cuts to, to many, many programs. But workforce development we're expected to keep up. One of the other things that, you can't write a grant without really committed partnerships. There's community colleges, industry, workforce development system, and it's primarily the colleges and the industries that come together, and how you do that is, based on the different source of funding, but it might require that you work with your community, your county workforce investment board or your state Department of Labor. But the partnerships are critical, and you're not going to get away with, I don't think, any kind of grant without really having very strong partnerships and meaningful ones, not just anything that's sort of on paper. Again, we're ensuring skills for students and access to high-wage jobs. That's what's out there.
One of the things that we were actually just talking about this morning, and it's obviously been very current with the whole fiscal cliff discussions, is that the workforce is obviously going to be a lot more particular about the types of trained workers that they're in. It's going to be now the whole requirement for the benefits packages and such. And so the ability to train the most effective workers and the ability for employers to feel like they can have the most highly skilled workforce, especially if they end up paring down, would seem that it would become more critical and put more of the emphasis on our ability to produce those types of incumbent workers or the job skills that they're going to now be required.
Well, again, I think that just repeats what we've talked about, but there is certainly an emphasis on STEM, and that's of interest to most of you, and I think that, again, is not going to go. Workforce development and STEM sort of are the two key things that we want to see. One of the areas, again, we do want to talk about the Department of Labor, and there's two grants in particular that are really appropriate for community colleges, and they're both announced as becoming available in winter of 2013. They're the H-1B visa grants. And if Steve has energy, I might ask him to talk about it because I know he had some. If not, we'll talk about it. And the other one is, we'll get to that in a minute, okay? The other one is the Trade Adjustment Assistance Act. And again, it has all the components that, oops, is this what my thing looks like?
Yeah.
Oh, well, sorry. I did it on Keynote.
At least it's transparent.
It's kind of, yeah, can you see it kind of? Michael, what is this? I was going to intersperse some of Michael's high-tech slides in here to see, like, if you could tell the difference between mine and his. Anyway, this is mine. This is a very good opportunity for community colleges. It's one of the few that really is targeted for community colleges as the lead applicant. And it's big money. It's between $5 and $15 million. But what we've been learning, I think, through conversing with a lot of people during this conference, some of the things that we've learned through discussing, awards with colleagues, is that you might not want to bite off the $20 million type of grant, which sort of tries to cover everything, but rather focus on one industry. It could be multi-state, but really focus on one industry, one set of skills, and sort of keep that element of it as simple as possible. Do you want to talk a little bit about what we worked together on?
Right. Yeah, Laura and I actually worked on a large collaborative TACCT grant back on the East Coast, and I can't remember how many colleges were involved offhand, like 4 or 5?
I think 3 community colleges and one 4-year
university, right?
University. Yeah.
And there was a lot of really, really good, strong elements to that partnership and that collaboration, yet On the flip side, one of our takeaways, our learning from that, was that it was fairly diluted as far as their focus. So they had incorporated a lot of different types of industries, so that kind of captures what Laura had mentioned. And one of the partners was more successful individually because I think that they did target their grant proposal on one particular type of industry or related industries. So we sometimes learn a lot from those collaborations, and that would be one of the takeaways, is to kind of focus on a common element, regardless of where your partners are located. And as many of you know, it actually ends up being really strategic in a lot of ways as far as your span of influence and those kind of things, if you do have partners from, different regions. But to really focus on kind of what brings you together, what's your common element. So it doesn't then appear as if you've just incorporated a list of 10 partners just to show that you're a big group. And it's not necessarily always successful to go after the whole amount when you take that approach. So in other words, it may make a lot more sense, and you would be probably a lot more successful if your focus was a lot more targeted and maybe only ask for what you need and just make sure that you really show those commonalities between the partners. So to where the partnerships make sense, and it's not just for the sake of having a lot of people involved. It may sound like common sense, but there are a lot of collaborations that are unsuccessful because it's too diluted. It's just not specific enough. Does that make sense?
It absolutely does make sense. And it happened to us a couple of times. When Cheryl was working with us in New Jersey, it was absolutely the case. And then there was another round of funding, and our state decided to put in a single proposal that tried to satisfy 19 community colleges, and it didn't satisfy anybody. We weren't awarded one. And no individual institution was allowed to apply because the presidents had this little pact that, we were going to go after one big one, but it was just all over the place. And it's just not the way to do it. You pick an industry that is, and this conference is a great way to, meet people that have the common interests and see if you want to move forward on an initiative of this scale. And again, it takes, we can't say it enough, that focus it, target it, give it a lot of thought before really even moving forward.
It's difficult internally, as you all know, and I came from the community college system. I worked in that system as a grants developer for about 10 years. And it's difficult when you're ingrained in that because you know that you have competing priorities, not only amongst your own college, but amongst partner colleges or multi-college districts. And it's hard to satisfy everyone, yet you may be getting that direction from up above that, no, we want everything in there. And we want this, we want automotive to have this, and we want to make sure hospitality gets this, and don't forget about nursing, put it all in there. So it's really challenging internally to try to, sift through all that. And sometimes I can get by with a little bit more as an outside person coming in because I'm not as integrated into your personal issues there, and I could come in and say exactly the same thing as Laura's saying. But as we all know, when I worked in community college systems and we brought in consultants, sometimes they said exactly what I said, but because they came in from the outside, the perspective was almost respected or regarded a little bit more clearly.
Much more so.
So oftentimes I'll work directly with your folks and then communicate exactly what you're trying to communicate, but sometimes I can be a little more successful with that because they don't seem like there's any hidden agenda. I don't have any, I'm not looking for anything, there's no bias. No. Yes?
Is it best to concentrate on one or two top codes? Repeat the question.
Is it best to focus on one or two top codes, was the question. Top codes, so the industry top codes, is that what you're referring to? I think that kind of lends itself to just focusing back on, particularly a particular industry. You want to speak more to that, or?
I think it's just really the commonalities. Yeah, I really do think you're going to have greater success in organizing a proposal, organizing a group of individuals that are part of the project team, and implementing it if it's really streamlined and focused. Yeah, I really do think so. You can't be everything to everyone. So yeah, I would say yes.
These are some good key questions.
And again, right, in thinking of your ideas, I try to encourage on my campus to get faculty or administrators, anybody who's preparing a grant, to really come up with a strong concept that really forces you to think of all the elements that might be included in a grant proposal. I have two different stories, but one, I'm working with some faculty on an NEH grant, and they were preparing for a call to the program officer because that was encouraged. They wanted to make sure that their idea was, was going to fly. And so they sort of thought that they could just wing it on the phone. And, we talked and sat around the table for a couple of hours on a couple of different days. And I really sort of, kind of had them think through really all of what they wanted to do and who they would involve and really be prepared for the phone call. And they put a lot of stuff on paper as well and sent in advance to the program officer, a pretty sound concept. And through that and a discussion, they decided to proceed. Had they not done that, I don't know that they would have gotten very far with the grant writing process, because that would have been too much all over the place. And this sort of helped them hone in their thoughts. And Michael, did you want to talk at all about how you were successful in getting your concept organized, or do you not?
I don't know that anybody's going to hear me. We can't hear you.
Oh, do you want to come up here? Oh, Michael, I'm sorry. But you have a good story.
I have a good story.
Is this for the mobile apps for technicians?
No, this is actually a different project. Hi, I'm Mike Qaissaunee. I'm faculty in engineering and technology and chair of engineering and technology. And we've been working on a cybersecurity project, and it's something that started in the summer, and it was initiated by an industry partner. And so this industry partner contacted the college and had this idea for doing some projects in cybersecurity and actually seeking some funding for it. So I met with this gentleman. His name is Ed Scotus. He operates a cybersecurity business near the college. And we had lunch a number of times. We sat down. He sort of gave me an overview of the idea. He didn't know anything about writing grants or how a grant should be structured. But his main idea was that cybersecurity graduates are not successful in the workforce, and they're finding this from his own workforce and then also people that he works with. And what it is, it's this idea of stick time. So pilots talk about you need 1,000 hours of stick time. So they're saying that these cybersecurity professionals, they need 1,000 hours of stick time before they're successful and can contribute in the field. So he wanted to come up with this sort of private public partnership where they go through our community college program and then quickly ramp up and are working with his people as what he was calling residents, so like medical residents. So rather than, and it's an internship essentially, but he's viewing it as a cybersecurity residency where they're working with cybersecurity professionals on real-world projects, not just on projects that you develop in a classroom environment. And so we sat down, worked out the idea. He brought his expertise, I brought my expertise, and we really just over the course of a month and a half really nailed down the idea, came up with just about a 2-page concept paper that described it, set up a meeting with somebody at NSF in the Cyber Scholarships program at NSF, got a meeting down there, went down and met with him, pitched the idea with this 2-page concept paper. And the guy loved the idea. It was something innovative, and they've been getting the same feedback from employers that even university graduates come out without the hands-on skills that companies need. And so he was willing. He said, work on it. After this was their books had just closed, but he said, work on it. Get me a proposal. We can go through this supplemental funding cycle where it just comes to me. It doesn't go through a panel, and I'll fund it for you. And we went back, and because we had spent so much time refining the concept in this 2-page concept paper, the proposal came together very easily because it was really just filling in all of the information that we had cut out to really to really make it so concise. So I mean, in just about really 3 weeks, we were able to put together a full proposal, send it back to him, and get his feedback and get a budget worked out. So we're still in the process of finalizing all that, but it brought home to me the fact that that initial time just spent working out the concept, taking a good idea and working out the details, and really being critical of it, and you know, how would this work, and you know, and him understanding what I do, me understanding what he did, that really benefited this concept paper. And as I said, getting that together, it also gave me something internally that I could share with deans and vice presidents to get their buy-in, something that I could share with the president. So you know, in future proposals, I see that initial period of time where you're just working out, hammering out just a concept like that as more critical than even writing the proposal, because the proposal was the easy part. Just getting the concept and all the details worked out was the hard part.
Thanks, Michael. That was good.
How was the money used? And how much was it?
It's how was the money used and how much was it? He told us to ask for $300,000 for 2 years, and it's to fund a number of competitions. The concept is a funnel where we recruit as many students at the beginning of the funnel, take them through some online curriculum and some competitions to narrow the funnel down, and then we're going to have a competition on site at our college and narrow down the pool even more. And then this is also partnering with the SANS Institute, which is a big cybersecurity training group. Then those at the bottom of the funnel would get access to that SANS curriculum, and the grant would fund part of that. The SANS Institute is also providing us with a grant to support part of that. And then at the ones who go through those would get the residency positions.
And paid residency.
Yeah, these are he was insistent. Again, part of the whole thing of industry partners is finding somebody like this guy Ed Scotus who really, he believes in this, and he wanted these to be paid residencies. He didn't think it would benefit the students and be good for the students to just be there volunteering their time in internships. So he wanted paid residencies. Yes.
And Mike, is the paid residency part of the stick time and does the grant award pay for the internship or stick time or residency?
Yeah, it's part of the stick time. Yeah, the question was, is the residency part of the stick time, the time working as a cybersecurity professional, and also does the grant support that? He felt that he could support the number of residents that we were going to do. What we put in for additional ones and are identifying other companies. So the grant is paying for helping us to identify additional companies and then also liaisoning with the companies to make these connections.
Do you think NSF, I assume it's an NSF, right?
Yes, it's NSF.
Would NSF allow their funding to pay the internship? Is it $12 or $15 an hour?
He wants to pay them $20. The question was, would NSF allow them to pay for part of the internship? In this case, we wanted to pay them $20 an hour. That's what we budgeted for. And NSF was open to that. So if we had wanted to put funding in there to support part of the internship, they didn't have a problem with that. Yes, we have a couple more questions.
Probably directed at you, Mike.
Yes, go ahead.
Who's going to be the employer of record?
Who's going to be the employer of record? Well, Ed Scotus is the gentleman's name. His company is CounterHack. So his business is primarily penetration testing. So he's going to be the employer of record for the group of residents that are going to be working with him, and then they would, as we identify other companies, they would be working for those people.
And he's going to invoice you for the wages?
No. The question was, is he going to invoice us for the wages? The budget we structured, none of the internship is paid for by the NSF grant. So he's going to be paying the students directly out of his company. All right, I have one back there, Warren. The question was, who will be teaching the courses? So what we've done, the way the grant is structured is...
Mike's going to be around too if he needs to
Yeah, the way the grant is structured is that the initial courses, we're calling them essential knowledge development, are just online streaming video with some PDF documents. The full-blown SANS courses that are at the lower end of the funnel, what we budgeted for is to actually pay industry experts to come down and be at the college. So the courses will be online, but then the industry experts would be there to help tutor students and work with students. So we have stipends and honoraria for industry experts, and also some of the SANS instructors will be involved virtually. Yes, you had another question, Warren?
Mike, will the students be awarded credits for their on-the-job training or residency?
The question was, will the students get credit for their residency? We do have a internship course, so we could definitely register for them for that, and they could get course credit for that experience, definitely.
75 hours per credit, or standard in New Jersey, or
yeah, I think it's about 75 or 60 per credit. Yes. Yes.
No, we got to give him the hook. Go ahead. One more question.
So if he's hiring the students, is he hiring them through a temp agency, or is he hiring them directly, and is it a temporary employment and with a start date ended?
The question is, if he's hiring the students, is he hiring them directly? Is it through a temp agency? Is there a start date and end date? The way this is structured is basically the students who go through the SANS courses and we've also got money in there. I think each SANS course, it's $580 to take the certification for an individual SANS course. So we have money in there for the students to take the certification as well. So the students who go through and take the certifications and do well in those, the top, and we're looking at 6 to 8 students are going to get invited to apply for these residencies. And so this is, again, a very selective process. NSF was very keen on, they wanted this to be selective. They didn't want the end of this funnel to be 20 students. They wanted these to be the best of the best, the cream of the crop. So these students would apply, and then I'm assuming Ed, and maybe in consultation with me and some other people, will sit down and look at the applications, determine which ones would be the best of the best and pick for his company. In terms of start dates and work hours, I think that's going to work, they're going to work around each student's availability and what they can do if they want to continue their studies, or if they're, or if they're going to see this as their primary thing that they're going to do for that. So it could be 20 hours a week for the internships, or it could be 40 hours per week.
I'm going to give him the hook.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. I have business cards here. So
yes, there are. No, I mean, our point was, I think everybody was interested in the project, but our point was really to say that a really sound concept can lead to something that's really of interest to a funding agency and a group of of you guys. So.
Actually, it was a really good example, and I'm glad for the questions, because it really did give you kind of a real-life idea of the things that we're talking about that have to go into making a successful proposal, rather than just sitting down and saying we want to write a grant. I think Mike's bottom line point was it took a lot of collaboration in the beginning, a lot of discussion. They actually solicited NSF instead of just applying through the mainstream grant, and that can happen and be very successful. I think that was an excellent illustration of how you can basically promote and sell your idea. And then the writing part of it, whether or not you have to go through the mainstream application or you're fortunate enough to get basically kind of an invitation to apply, it makes the writing and the success of your writing so much easier, and you have a much better chance of getting funded. So it's really worth that extra upfront time. And whether or not you write it on your own, or you have someone come in, or you have an industry help you, it just increases your success rate. It's worth it. And then none of us want to waste our time, our resources, our money, and just funneling out grants for no guaranteed success, basically. So it was actually a really good real life example of what we're talking about here.
Thank you, Mike. That's all a part of. Okay.
Storytelling. Thank you, Mike.
Yeah, I think you told a compelling story.
Told your story of the firm officer.
And there's my
overlap again. H1B.
Yeah. Again, back to just we might have another guest speaker. But one of the other Department of Labor grants that is also very good for community colleges, and that you know, because they're putting people to work, those funds are there, they're committed, and they should not be going places because the money comes from the visa itself. The money is there. It's not like other federal funding. So the H-1B visa grant is through the Department of Labor's Employment and Training Administration. It has lots of partnership requirements like your Workforce Investment Board. Industry plays a key role, and community colleges. And I think Steve, when he served as president in at Riverdale Valley, New Hampshire, he was successful with 2 H-1B grants in 2 different fields. Do you want to say briefly about the process of those? Or?
Sure, Laura. You got to come up.
You got to come up.
I would have my back to people anyhow, so.
I'll step.
Okay, thank you.
But again, there are opportunities that are coming up, and this is again should be winter 2013, and it's one of the few opportunities that is out there for us, for community colleges.
So Laura said, I'm Steve Budd. I was president of River Valley Community College in New Hampshire until June of this year. And I left voluntarily to explore other things, and one of the first things I began to do was work with the ICT Center in Springfield, Mass. So I'm working as a consultant for a couple of days a week with them. And one of the concerns that I have is how we can sustain the activities of our NSF centers as the NSF begins to back away from being the sole source of funding for these operations. Now, at River Valley with the HB1 grants, we did 2. We focused, one was with a consortium of manufacturers, all doing very high-level manufacturing, one making parts for the space shuttle program historically and with other spacecraft. The other was a welding company that made welding equipment. Plasma cutting tools was their product, and very high technology also. So we worked with these manufacturers, and then we had another grant that was healthcare focused as well. The H-1B, as Laura and Cheryl have been saying, as we look at the federal landscape, these are the grant opportunities for the Department of Labor. They're investing very heavily in community colleges and in workforce education. And one of my thoughts as of late, I'm remembering back to the ATE conference of 4 or 5 years ago, where Gerhard Salinger brought together a group of program officers from the Department of Labor and the NSF, and had a very, very fruitful conversation around how the agencies had overlapping priorities and how we might be able to leverage each other. Now, after that, I am unaware of much that has happened in terms of collaboration between the 2 agencies, but certainly I do know from looking at the agenda of this conference, where Amber Healer from Collin College is talking about her TAC grant program. Here's my point. With the manufacturers, we built an educational pipeline between the community college and a neighboring 4-year college that began with training folks to do machine tool technology at a certificate level, something less than an associate degree. But there were clearly articulated pathways between that certificate and an associate of science in machine tool technology, and then the opportunity to transfer to Keene State College to earn their Bachelor of Science degree in Sustainable Product Design. So there's a lot of science in all of this. And you know, one of the conversations that I'm going to open in the ensuing weeks between, you know, program officer at NSF and the DOL, you know, is how we might look at ICT as a very, very important industry, certainly in Massachusetts, by the way. That's where I'm working. Oh, you know that from the ICT Center. But, you know, how can we, you know, build upon some of this workforce development money out of DOL to sustain the curriculum development activity that we have been doing for years now with National Science Foundation funding at the ICT Center. So I haven't got an answer for all of you on that, but you know, that's where my thinking is going. Two agencies with very different cultures.
Yes.
You know, NSF is very different from DOL. That may be part of some of the expectations. DOL is all about job placement. You know, where I think the NSF is considerably more intellectual and academic, you know, than the DOL is. But you know, the overlaps in my mind, you know, are clear. You know, curriculum development, you know, at the certificate, at the associate degree level, leading to employability. And just one more comment based on what Mike was talking about. The Department of Labor, under these H-1Bs, like to pay for on-the-job training. Okay, and that is another avenue for building, you know, hands-on opportunities for internships or OJTs within businesses, you know, while allowing students to continue to pursue credit-bearing classes. So now in my new life, I'm trying to merge these two.
Yeah. And we're going to be right behind you, or with you, or beside you, I think, in your endeavor.
Oh,
thanks, Steve.
Okay.
Yeah. We can get to this. Yeah.
Does everyone have access to the slides? Like you could access some of these resources later?
I think they're going to get posted on ICT, MTIC. I think they get posted, don't they, the slides?
If you gave it to
Okay. So there's some resources here for other avenues for finding technology-related funding in addition to the few that we're able to highlight today. H-1B, the TACCT, and in a minute we want to touch on the Title III and V grants that are coming up also.
Yeah, I think you probably might want to just move into that, right, Cheryl? Oh, my goodness. Oh, well, we better just talk.
Okay, we'll just talk right over it. So the three that we chose to highlight today, the reason that we're highlighting these is because they obviously are very timely and they're all kind of coming up. They're right on the horizon. There'll be other ones, obviously, that are announced, but the 3 or 4 that we're focusing on today is just because they're very, very timely and current. Title III and V, anyone have a current Title III or V grant here through the Department of Ed? No? Okay.
Yeah, Warren might have that through his
another really, really great funding opportunity for technology-related institutional capacity is really what these grants are about, how you can develop your internal capacity as a college, as a district. It's designed to be, you know, sustaining over time, over 5-year, they're 5-year grants. They're anywhere from $3 to $5 million. The difference here, as you mentioned, each of these funding agencies have a little different focus, whether it's on-the-job, workforce training, placement. Department of Ed, and this is not meant to oversimplify, but Department of Ed obviously is more interested in the students' level of success. How successful are they as they go through the programs? So with these grants, the focus then is on their the college's ability to improve the degree seeking rate, the graduation rate, the completion rates, success measurements of students as they go through your training courses. So even though that's their focus of their grants, ultimately what you can do with those funds, though, is that you can build out your capacity to deliver more high-tech training, outfit your campus with wireless capacity if you're still not at that level that you want to be, digitizing the way that you deliver, you know, your curriculum. Anything technology-related is a very, very common concept that Title III and V funds.
Just the distinction between Title III and V,
yes,
Cheryl. Just
so the difference between Title III and V, Title V, the only difference is that is the Hispanic Serving Institution version of Title III. So if you meet that that threshold, I believe it's at 25%, and the low income threshold, those are the two elements, then you can apply for this version of Title III, which is the Title V. Key dates here, and again, you'll get this, and we'll try to clean this up so when you get it, you don't have to read through everything. But the eligibility designation is the first step in being able to apply. That designation is due at the end of January. So again, very timely. If you're interested in learning more about that, that's actually the one that I specialize in the most. I'm happy to talk with you afterwards. And then the deadline for actually applying for the grant is anticipated to be March 30th. That's usually a moving target. It's usually later. But I, as a consultant, like to work with you and anticipate it's going to be March 30th. So we're ahead of the game and not having to kind of scramble at the last minute. Let's see, you can't really read through here, but we'll clean that up. And let's see, so the applications are actually now available. But the key things here, I included a couple really important links. There is a great PDF and PowerPoint presentation on, past successes, the different elements of these grants. They have some great abstracts available. You can take a look at the list of funded colleges, which again is an excellent resource for any of these grants. The reason we called on these two gentlemen today, people that have been successful in getting grants funded through some of these large federal grants are excellent places to start. Talk to them about what helped them to be successful. Talk to them and look up and talk to the rest of us about what were some learning points, because not everyone was successful every time, and most of us weren't successful the first time. So it's really good to learn what went well and what did you learn from the process to help you to become more successful the next time. There are different versions of some of these Department of Ed grants. There is a STEM-related grant. I'm not sure if they're going to be having that. They're anticipating it, but I'd have to look and see if they're actually going to fund it this year.
Is that through the Title III, Title V?
It is. At some point they were separate,
okay.
But it is all through the
Oh, that's interesting. Okay.
So there's one that's specific for STEM-related too, and that's another avenue for you. I'm really sorry about the way the slides turned out here.
Me too.
There's a HUD grant, that's HSI. Again, these are some of the things that I mentioned. You can take a look at the abstracts and past funded grants. We already moved to it.
Let's go to, well, that's the, okay. No, go back to the question mark, because that's really kind of the end of where we were.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
So again, the three, I guess just to recap quickly, and I know our time is somewhat short here, but we've talked about the TAACT grants, the H-1B grants, NSF, of course, you can't not have a conversation about NSF grants. And then the Department of Ed Title III and V grants. Those are kind of the big ones that are on the current horizon right now. Did you want to speak to anything else related to that or upcomings?
No, I think those are the ones that we're all looking at, from the grants offices at community colleges. I know that NSF grants too. Some of the other ones that are outside of the scope of ATE have tried to really bring in community colleges into the fold. We're not usually the lead agency in applying for them, so if you have a good relationship with one of your universities, they may indeed be looking to partner with the community colleges, because that's one way that NSF is saying that they're reaching out to community colleges and making them a part of their agenda.
And I think the common elements to all the ones that we've talked about, and even the ones that we don't have time to mention, is that the key element is planning, developing a sound proposal, project idea, knowing what your plan is and what your expected outcomes are, and to do that prior to sitting down and writing any of your proposals. I would say all of these are more strategic when they're done in partnership with other industry partners, private sector, K through 12s, other community colleges, university partners. Even with the Title III and V grants, there is actually a cooperative opportunity there too. You can do an individual grant, or you can do what they call a cooperative. So if you don't meet the threshold for the eligibility requirements, you're not necessarily out of the game. Again, opportunity to partner with some other college that does meet that criteria. And that's where the cooperative becomes a really strategic way to get into that whole system. We don't qualify yet, but your college does. We'd like to partner with you. It's a very viable and very strategic way to kind of get into the game. And you can share the funds fairly equally. The only difference there is that the lead college would get probably a little bit more of the funding to manage it. But other than that, you still get a really good head start with that funding.
I was wondering what your experience is with ATE grants, with sort of the concept that you need to do an ATE project first before you become a center.
Oh, I think that that's really pretty critical. Oh, repeat the question, I'm sorry. The question was whether, what's the feeling about submitting an ATE project grant prior to submitting center grants. And I think what we've seen with ATE funding is that there are not that many center grants to go around. And I think I would encourage anybody looking at ATE to do a project prior to moving into a center. You really have to have sort of the foundation from a project and see if it really moves in the direction that you want it to have it successful. A project can be, I mean, a $900,000 project can be a pretty big, thing to manage. And again, you can bring in a lot of partners with that. And I don't think you'd be successful moving directly into the realm of the centers, either regional or national. And I think that anybody at NSF would also make that same recommendation. The projects are definitely the way to go, and there's more funding available there. They are more and more competitive, but they're not as competitive as the funding that's there for the centers.
There's another opportunity here that Dan will make available to you in the slides, another NSF opportunity that you may be interested in, and we'll let you kind of go all the way through it. Take a look at that. Again, they're just kind of general concepts, and we mentioned earlier about the role that consultants can help to support your efforts.
But we only have about 2 or 3 minutes left. So are there any other questions that we can help you with? Let's just
Laura, is Brookdale, you're not a Title V.
No, we're not Title V eligible. But we have considered, or I've thought about, the collaborative that Cheryl has talked about. And that would have to be done with a partner institution in New Jersey that is Title V eligible.
That's the one. I'm sorry. That's the one time where a collaboration on a Title III or V would make sense to have an in-state partner as opposed to an out-of-state partner. I'm sorry to cut you.
You said Title III, which I'm not familiar with. They're essentially the same without the HSI.
Essentially, right. There's a little bit more money in Title V, to be honest, but
you're not familiar with Title III? Title III is Department of Education. It's called Strengthening Institutions, and it has a history of not being funded every single year. What we've seen in the past is that you have to be eligible to apply. There's an eligibility process, but you can also get a waiver. It's really it's a great stream of money for bringing retention initiatives or technology initiatives to the campus. It's Department of Education Strengthening Institutions, 2 phases. You have to be eligible, and then if you're not Title V eligible, you do Title III. And it's quite a comprehensive application, and quite honestly, many people use consultants for Title IIIs and Vs. Many people. I think it's more common that people use consultants than do it on their own campus.
Conducive to a STEM-based focus.
Much more so now,
okay.
Right? And that's why they actually created a whole STEM initiative under those Title III and Vs. So yeah, they're actually looking at kind of combining that, but the STEM focus, I would say, is probably the most competitive trend as of late.
There's tons of abstracts. I mean,
yes.
Look at Title V abstracts. Mm-hmm. It's a PDF file that's excellent in terms of the concepts that
right.
get talked about.
Exactly.
Title III has the same.
They do, right.
Yeah, this is your go-to girl for Title III and V.
Yeah, I'm happy to talk to you more about that. Yes, they're extremely competitive, but just like any of these others, if you find someone who specializes in NSF or H-1Bs, or in my case, Title IIIs and Vs, it truly is the way to go. When I was on the community college side, I felt the same. Even though I did a lot of grants like Laura does within her institution, we actually brought in consultants to help us help me as the grants person at the time write those specific grants, because it really does help to
that is most people do. I don't know many institutions that don't do hire consultants to help that.
And the fact that they're 5-year grants and they're funded at a pretty healthy level allows you the ability then to carry out some of those initiatives that do take 2, 3, 4 years to actually implement, especially when it comes to technology. You really need that time to do it. And the nice thing that I like about those, when I was on the other side of the community college side, is that not only did it allow you to accomplish a lot of what you wanted to do, but they were sustainable types of things that really improved your overall capacity as a college. So they weren't just project-based, and they weren't just instructional-based. It really changed the whole culture of your college. So when you were done with the Title III or V grant, you truly had something to show for it that you could build on.
Mm-hmm. So, good way to put it. I think we are at time. Thank you.